Welcome back. Now, part of managing your Airtable checklist is to group each of the categories into the right area so that once you have a glance across where you need to be, you can easily figure out what you need to do next. And so now we're going to talk about the grouping for each of the categories for the checklist. So if you see just on this section here, we've got the when, and then we've got the whether it's complete or incomplete. A little bit later on, we will see the allocated people that need to complete certain parts of the tasks, and we will go through and show you each of those elements and how to build them within a different view. Okay, now we're in the master checklist of the Airtable checklist, and what I want to show you is how to set up different groupings for each of the categories. So for the grouping by when, so we want to put a control around what you see for the when categories here. So if we do that here, so I've just brought these items up to a higher level for and grouped by when. So before your first day, you can clearly see what needs to be completed before the first day. On the first day for the employee, can be grouped like that. Much like a pivot table in Excel, we can group it this way. So I'll just quickly show you how to do this. We go to our build section where we don't have a grouping here, and we go to this little tile here, the grouping section. And this, because you're in this view, you can group it within a grid view by column. I'm going to click on the when, and then it just dynamically moves it into that area. And then you can sort it from first to last. And the way that we were talking about, if you want to change that sorting, basically you need to change how the structure of the field is grouped. So what we've just shown there is that you can change the current view in the current grid view. But if we want to change that back and we want to have a separate grid view that you can go to every time, we'll just turn that grouping off. We'll create our new grid view, and we can call this grouping by when. We've created a whole separate view that you can click on and preset and set up for when you want to see it. And as I stated here before, you can just, if you find that, month one is above week one, or you want to move it back for the automatic sorting, you can move that sorting around within the customization of the column. And then we're going to click on group again by the when and have it there. You can also preset whether it's collapsed or expanded. So we're going to collapse it. And there you go. You can see a few other elements that come up now that, just like a pivot table, you've got a counting function. So it counts how many rows are in that. I believe that you can expand those. So you can expand just that section or expand all. Same for collapsing. Also as well, you can add in a summary element of each of the columns that you have there. And if you see with this calculation, these are the time-based ones. And so there's no real point in having a summary of those. But if there are days left or a count function that you need to have within these summaries, you can add those in as well. So that's the grouping by when function. The next grouping that we're going to see is the complete or incomplete section. So the final view of what that would look like is anything that is incomplete is still shown on this area. So if we go into the master grid, you'll see that there are four elements here that are still to be completed before the start date. And if, say, prior to the start date, we click on complete 3 of them, and they are ticked in this open view, when we go to the incomplete section, there should only be 1 left, and that's correct. So this is just a filter function. So it's not a grouping, but it's a filter function by the completed options. So I'll show you how to create this. So to create this filtered function for the completed tasks, we need to create a new grid view. So it's a totally new view. Call it incomplete. Any items that are incomplete, they will be shown here. And then we want to filter and add a condition. So the condition is when the checklist item, when complete is set to not ticked, that's when you want it to be shown. So if we click out here, we see that there is the filter, and you can see that all of these are still available. And then we go to the master grid. We click on, that we've completed the first 4 before your first days. We'll see here, you won't see them now. And so if you just want a quick view that you want to share with your team, or if you want to set up on a particular page, you can see all of these incomplete views if you share that with this button here. We can show that a little bit later. So that's the incomplete filtered view. And just a reiteration there, on these particular views, if you want to hide certain fields, you can just go to this section here. We can just have due dates and due dates only. So is it complete? We can turn that off because we know that all of this only shows incomplete. And that's just a simplified view here. So it's showing the checklist item, when it's due and the due date, and then whether it is incomplete or not. Now we're going to show you some of the different other views that we can be creating on your checklist. And so depending on whether your data suits, I'll just turn these off. Depending on whether your data suits, you've got 7 different views here. So you've got the grid view, which you can just use just like an Excel spreadsheet, showing you a table, and you can sort and filter just like we've shown there. You can also create a separate form for that data. We'll go into that into a future episode. You can show a calendar view. We'll definitely be showing this because our checklist here is date-based. We're going to show a little bit later how to set up different calendar views of this information and how you can share those calendars with whoever needs to see those calendars, so that it will be represented and shared within their Outlook or Google Calendar as well. A gallery view, we can show a quick view of the gallery view here. There's a team gallery. So it shows a nicer, more visual element there. Typically, if there's an image of the item, whether it be a picture or whether it be a view of the item format, we can go back here. So Kanban. So typically, if you're setting up or running a project or a workflow where certain work has to be produced and moved into the next stage, you can use a card system there. Timeline. So just like a typical timeline on a calendar, or if you have determinant, elements that need to be completed, you can either use a timeline or a Gantt series. So they're the other views. Have a play around with those, and you don't lose anything by clicking on that. So if you create a new view, you set up, say, Kanban, let's do grouping field. So let's group it by when, just like this. And what I love about Airtable is that it dynamically updates each of the elements. So if you find that this is just a workflow system that you have to move into the next stages, basically you can drop and drag these elements in here and it'll actually change the when or the grouping there. So you can pop that back in there. And that's how we have different views and different groupings for all of our different elements on the checklist.